All right, I think we will go ahead and get started this evening. So everyone who's joined us, thank you for joining for our neighborhood roundtable. We usually have them during the day, but we've moved them to the evening based on consensus at the last meeting. The ground rules for this meeting, as always, please stay muted while others are speaking. Please raise your hand to speak. Feel free to use the chat and the Q&A features during the meeting. And we are recording this meeting and it will be posted on our website within 2 weeks. We also have interpretation services available tonight, simultaneous interpretation. So we have Marina with us. And I'm going to switch over to have simultaneous interpretation begin in just a minute, but I wanted her to kind of provide instructions on how you can take advantage of that if you need them.
Buenas tardes, ya vamos a comenzar en un minutito. Muchas gracias a todos los que se han reunido a esta mesa redonda para el día de hoy. Normalmente hacemos estas reuniones durante el día, pero la hemos movido hoy más por la tardecita. Tenemos algunas reglas, les pedimos a todos que se pongan en silencio. Tenemos también el botón para apretar para levantar la mano. Siéntanse libres de poner sus preguntas en el chat. Vamos a estar grabando esta reunión y en 2 semanas va a estar disponible en nuestra página web. Y también vamos a tener servicio de interpretación en español. Una vez que en un minutito van a ver abajo de la pantalla un mundo, aprieten ahí y pueden estar escuchando todo lo que diga el orador en español. Gracias.
All right, I have started the simultaneous interpretation. So our agenda tonight, we have a pretty full agenda. Obviously welcome everyone. First I want to provide Craig Chico of Back of the Arts Neighborhood Council and his design team to present some ideas to you. There's a grant opportunity available for outdoor seating and public open space in Back of the Yards. And I know Craig has been working with the design team on some ideas, and I know that they have intentions to engage the community as well around this. So I want to provide them some time to present on that. And then we have Lydia with us from the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events to provide, I think, a brief update on the 49th Street Viaduct lighting project. Unfortunately, CDOT is not with us this evening. They weren't able to join, but I do have a quick update on what to expect next in terms of some infrastructure improvements in the corridor. And then finally, and I think what we're most excited to talk about this evening is we've received some responses to our request for proposals for the development site at 47th and Justine. And so we want to take a little time this evening to provide a preview to you of those proposals that we received back and give you a sense of what the next steps are in the process and how you'll be able to engage. But to start, I do want to hand it over to Craig Chico and Via Chicago Architects and Diseñadores to talk about their ideas. Craig?
Hi guys, I'll start real briefly and make the introduction. Smith Group and Via Chicago are the design teams that will be making the presentations, but just to go 30,000 feet, Mary O'Connor, the Deputy Commissioner of DPD, has brought to us an opportunity from Choose Chicago, which will be graded and evaluated by CDOT. So there's an RFP process involved, which was due today, which we submitted. But before we submit and do anything permanent and put anything down, we wanted to express to our community what our thoughts were. And I'll just give you a real brief overview of the concerns or the challenges and opportunities. We haven't had an opportunity to have people gathering spaces, outdoor dining, any type of outdoor enjoyment in our community on our corridor for forever. This presents that opportunity at no cost to any individual business and no cost to the taxpayer, because I want to point out this is money that's been generously donated. I don't know who the actual donors are, but it is private donations. And so it's kind of real exciting. I don't think anybody should expect it to happen tomorrow, but I think it should happen this summer. So I just wanted to lay the groundwork real quickly for everyone and then turn it over to our friends who've been working really, really diligently on this to get this thing ready and up and running for today's RFP submittal. And that would be, I think I'm turning it over to Christina and Brett and Matt from Smith Group and Via Chicago. And I think Nolan, if it's really up to you if you want to do anything at the end of Q&A or whatever, but we'll start with the presentation.
That sounds good. And just let me know when you need me to advance the slide.
Very good.
Great. Thanks, everyone. My name is Brett Weidel. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I'm on the go a little bit in my car, but wanted to be here with everyone tonight. Thank you so much. We're so honored to be a part of this community discussion this evening. And just a quick intro, my name is Brett Weidel. I'm with Smith Group. I'm a landscape architect. And Christina, do you quickly want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Cristina Gallo. I'm an architect with Via Chicago Architects, and we're really excited to introduce our proposal. Next slide, please, Nolan.
Yeah, thank you. So we've been working through the Alfresco program, which Craig did a great overview of what that entails, working with Design Trust Chicago on looking at the 47th Street corridor and what are some opportunities to bring activation to this great corridor with some great businesses. You can see here some of the area that we're looking at within that corridor, and we'll go through some of those details on the next slide. So you can see here a little bit closer the areas that we've been looking at in our site walks, and really wanted to hone in on, what are some of the existing businesses and restaurants that currently exist along the corridor. You'll see those in yellow here. We wanted to identify those because those are businesses that we really want to make sure that we're supporting through this effort between retail and restaurants. There's some great things happening along the corridor right now, both existing and in the future. And so this activation is intended to help those businesses grow and to bring attention and open space to the area along the corridor. So not only are we exploring areas throughout the entire corridor, like on the streetscape, but we're also looking at some of the side streets. And you'll see that we did look at the side streets right off of 47th, so between 47th and the alleyway, as possible opportunities that we might utilize that space of the side street itself to provide open space to the community. So you'll see the areas in green are some of the areas that we have explored through this process to maybe activate with open space. And then we're circling in red, which is Honore Street. We thought this location was really centrally located on the corridor between some really great businesses. And then it's also right across the street from the neighborhood council office, which is a great opportunity to be so close to such an open space as well. So if we go to the next slide, we'll explain a little bit more about some of the circulation here. So we know that with Honore being a one-way street south, you'll see on the diagram on the left, we just explored what is the circulation currently along the roadway going south. We know that there's an alleyway just north of 47th Street. And so if we were to think about closing off part of this street, you'll start to see in the diagrams to the right, which show two scenarios for how this might happen, that we would really want to be considering how that impacts traffic. And that's really a big part of this study, is to consider the short and long-term impacts of that, because as Craig mentioned, this is a really great opportunity to sort of start to test and see like what it might be like and feel like if we were to close off a street, maybe even long-term, and what those impacts might be. So we studied in the middle here, you'll see one option was if we were to close the street, that we could reroute that one-way traffic through the alleyways. Another option to the right is that we could close the street a little bit further north at 46th Street with a very casual barricade and just with signage that says closed to residents or open to local traffic only. So only residents would really be accessing that street. And we could transform that from a one-way street to a two-way street so that people coming south along the street could turn around when they get down to the activation spot and go back north, or they could go back through the alley. So these were just a couple of options that we're looking at with the alderman's office, with the neighborhood council, and discussing right now as a means to get an open space like this to work on a side street. Christina, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, next slide. I just want to let everyone know that we are a bilingual studio, so any questions in Espanol, I'll be very happy to answer for you. So you're looking at our proposed site plan view of the partial closure of Honore Street, so at the north corner of Honore and 47th Street. And what we're really trying to do is serve the community by finding a safe place that can enhance the pedestrian activity and really allow for a public plaza, a very walkable area to enjoy as we all exit from this very tough last year that we've all, shared and lived through together. We're looking for businesses to have a place for outdoor dining, for performances to be put on, to continue to grow on the cultural traditions of, for example, the Ballet Folklorico that Back of the Yards has so successfully promoted through all of these years, or maybe even bring back the Back of the Yards Fiesta. That would be an exciting thought this year as well. So looking at the Ballet Folklorico, the beautiful colors and patterns inspired in the dresses really led us towards having a colorful and vibrant impact on the design of this pedestrian plaza. We're hoping to create that through paint on the ground floor, tap into the talents of the community artists, and ask for your help in helping us define what this identity is, what these colors and patterns might be. There's such beautiful murals across 47th Street that we're just excited to collaborate with anyone who wants to join us on this effort. Next slide. So through street painting, we would love this to spread to the other side of the street as well and delineate the sidewalks and the corners to really announce this as a new space. And we hope that this initiative can then continue on over the years and be very, and grow by extending to future intersections. Next slide. As we all try to find, new exciting things to do this summer, we're hoping to design furniture for outdoor eating, for hanging out with your friends, for kids to be able to play after school or during the summers, and incorporate that into a flexible modular space that we're creating. Next slide. One of the bigger things is alfresco dining. There's such awesome and amazing restaurants, both old and then new ones coming to the corridor. So anywhere from grabbing a paleta down the street to the new burger spot that's going to be opening through the NOF program. We want to allow for a space with some sort of shade covering and for you to be able to spend some time with your friends and family enjoying the beautiful Chicago summers. Next slide. At the center of the design, we're hoping to have a green lawn that can be enjoyed maybe while watching some movies this summer or while looking at performances that can be put together through different programs that the Back of the Yards Neighborhood Council is going to be working on. So allowing for a fresh outdoor space for kids running around and really enjoying that space. Next slide. And then we would love to bring more of the cultural elements, calling maybe on the textures and colors of the papel picado and envisioning some sort of overhead shaded structure that would allow for a little bit of those hot day reliefs throughout the summer. So this space can be as enjoyable and active as possible. Next slide. And then at the back, we're really looking forward to creating some sort of stage element to, again, support these programmatic needs that the neighborhood might be putting together. And we're going to be reimagining and envisioning some sort of scaffolding artistic backdrop, hopefully through the help of the various artists in the community as we create what this space might be. So all in all, this is a very initial draft of what we're dreaming up for this space, but we really want it to be safe, exciting. We want it to serve all of your needs. We want to hear from you and understand what you're looking for, and we want to be able to work with you as we continue designing our plans for La Plaza. We have a couple of slides where we put together some different photos and ideas that have been put throughout, and the Alfresco program is also pushing these things. But really, Nolan, Craig, Sonia, we would love to open it up for any comments or questions that anyone might have while we're here online.
Yeah, that's great. And I was going to say that too. I want to make sure folks have some time to ask questions, but I imagine there will be another opportunity too outside of this roundtable for folks to engage and have their voices heard, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Angie, I see your hand is raised.
That I was going to have, because this is new even for us. And I think, there's people on the blocks around that certainly around that plan development that I know will be interested in learning more. And I'm hoping that whenever that event is, that there will be some flyering, because not everybody is on social media. So maybe some sort of, like door hanger kind of information, letting them know that a meeting is coming up to talk about that space. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'll let, Craig and the design team speak for themselves, but I know for the RFP site, we will be flyering, putting out flyers and getting the word out.
No, I'll just say, yeah, to Angie's point, absolutely. We're not going to go hard yet until CDOT and the city agencies approve this site and get a little further down the road, but it can't happen without more community input, and all those residents and neighbors are aware and understand what's going on and have an opportunity to lend their input. But we have started a little bit already with reaching out to some of the businesses, but we will go real hard at it the way Angie's described and make sure everyone's aware and go door to door.
Great. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, I think we'll move on, but I will say, we'll be sure to touch base with Craig on any outreach and engagement activities around this public space, and we'll make sure that we're also helping to get the word out to folks on this call and our broader stakeholder group. So with that, we'll switch over to another kind of public art related topic. And I know we have Lydia Ross from DCASE on the call to provide a quick update on the viaduct lighting project. Lydia?
Yeah, thanks, Nolan and Sonia. Hi, everyone. It's really nice to be back in a at least virtual space, and hoping before too long we'll be together in person. I had the pleasure of talking to many of you a few months back about this project. Just as a refresher for anyone new on the call, DPD is partnering with CDOT and DCASE, the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, to create an immersive lighting installation at both sides of the viaduct at Ashland and 49th Street. And the lead artists are Petra Bachmeyer and Sean Gallardo, who go as Luftwerk. They visited the Roundtable and hosted a forum and also had some surveys to get ideas from community residents about what you all wanted to see and feel under the viaduct. And over the last several months, we had really incredible and thoughtful feedback, and they've taken all of that feedback to come up with the theme of woven together. So they're working right now to design a set of color changing light fixtures that will make you feel, if you're walking under both sides of the viaduct, as if you're in kind of the midst of a rich textile and color palette. But the theme is really rooted in wanting to create a kind of connective tissue that celebrates the cultural heritage of the neighborhood. And so their concept is really inspired by textile traditions from Mexico, from Africa, and from a lot of the other communities that are represented by residents in New City and Back of the Yards. So in addition to having this set of color changing lights, both walls on the east and west side will have beautiful large scale murals that they are going to design based on community feedback and community designs. So they're actually partnering with the artist Gloria Talamantes to host a series of workshops starting next month. Because of public health, we're still sorting through the logistics, hoping to have at least one virtual opportunity, and really inviting anyone and everyone to contribute photos and inspiration of different textiles, colors, and patterns that represent you, your background, your pride in the neighborhood and your family. Gloria is also developing partnerships with groups like Ballet Folklorico, Precious Blood Ministries, Richards High School, to make sure that we have a really wide range of folks who are creating artwork that is kind of celebratory in and of itself, but will also be documented and shared with Luftwerk so that the final product of what you see will really reflect the artwork that's been created by community residents during May and probably into early June. So I don't have more of a design to share yet because it's really going to be determined by what folks come up with and dream of in the next month or so. I will be sure to the point about outreach. Nolan and Sonia, of course, are fantastic communicators to this group, but we'll also be leaning on, flyers and the networks of these different partners to make sure that anyone who's interested in being involved, even if it means kind of getting like a take-home art kit that you can do in the privacy of your own home and sharing a photo. We really just want as many people to be part of this as possible so that it really does feel like the artwork is woven together like the title suggests. So more to come. If you are interested in hearing more, I will pop my email in the chat, so please stay in touch, and I'll be sure to do the same with you. I'll also just tease that I've also had the pleasure of introducing in past roundtables our artist in residence, Fernando Ramirez, who's developing public art ideas and plans in collaboration with Project Onward. Fernando is going to be setting himself up at Carolina Hosiery on Ashland, just north of 47th. In the coming weeks, he's designing, everything is also art, but he's designing a survey that's really meant to get hopes and dreams and ideas about public art, and is also developing a really beautiful hand-painted map of the neighborhood to start collecting ideas and places where folks would like to see art. So more to come on that as well, but really nice to see all of you, and thanks for giving me a few minutes.
Great. Thank you, Lydia. Alejandra Sanchez asked a question in the chat related to the Viaduct project. Will local artists also contribute to the mural?
Sorry, I muted myself. Yes, so we are hoping first the design would be informed by what kind of a collage of what folks come up with during these workshops, but we will also be looking to hire local artists to actually paint the mural. The exact timing is to be determined based on the schedule of when the lighting gets installed, but we're hoping for late summer, early fall.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions before we move on? All right, seeing and hearing none, thank you, Lydia. So the next item I just want to touch on, we were hoping to have CDOT with us this evening. Unfortunately, they were not able to join, but they should be joining us at next month's roundtable to talk through some of the public realm improvements that they've received funding to do in back of the yards. And so more information at the May roundtable, but we are continuing to coordinate with them on these potential infrastructure improvements along both corridors, and roughly looking at Ashland between 43rd and 49th Street, and then 47th Street between Hoyne and Loomis. But I don't want to speak for them, so I think we'll couch this one for now, and look forward to hearing from them at the next roundtable. And so that brings us to kind of our final item for the evening. As many of you know, who've been involved throughout the process, we launched a request for proposals process last summer, or late last summer, early fall. And one of the reasons why we're doing that is because Invest Southwest is committed to leveraging, public resources and investment into, much larger private investment. And so we kind of through the process, selected 47th and Justine, which is a city-owned vacant lot on the corridor. And we're looking to solicit development proposals for this key city-owned land on the corridor. And the idea has been to go beyond a traditional request for proposal process to facilitate greater design excellence and also equity in development, and engage the community to identify what types of uses they want to see on the site, and also help us to evaluate the responses that we receive. And then the other, big component is encouraging local partnerships and building local wealth. And so, last fall, we started the process. We had 2 visioning workshops, one in October and one in November. Anywhere from 50 to 80 local stakeholders, residents, business owners attended those. The design team also conducted in-person and phone interviews over this period of time. And then we also had additional engagement at our September, October, November, and December roundtables, as well as an additional public engagement event in the middle of January this year, just to answer questions and clarify things. And what we heard through the visioning process is that folks want to see more youth programming and recreation opportunities in the community. Quality open space and beautification is really important. It's also important to celebrate the community's cultural assets and resources. In terms of local businesses, or in terms of business and retail, folks were interested in seeing kind of general retail opportunities, but particularly those that support and encourage local business. And then also looking at business and entrepreneur support, as well as workforce training. And then, while I think the conversation was divided on the importance of housing at this particular site, one of the things that we did hear was, if housing were to be built on this site, it needs to be accessible to folks who are living in the community, local residents and families. And so this has been the timeline. We started this process, like I said, last fall. We released the RFP at the end of November. And so development teams have had a few months to kind of read through the criteria and what the community wants to see on this site, and kind of develop proposals for the site. And so those proposals came in at the end of last month on March 30th. And we're now in the evaluation process. And so not only will the city be evaluating the proposals and an evaluation committee evaluating them, we also want to bring them to the community for your thoughts and ideas on these. And so tonight is really just a preview of the proposals that we received. We're not looking to have a really deep discussion at this particular venue. This is really just to give you a preview and kind of outline what the next steps will be in the process, because next month we're planning a much larger public engagement session where the development teams will actually come to that meeting and present their proposals and answer questions themselves. And then the community will have an opportunity to kind of weigh in on their thoughts of those proposals. And so we received 3 responses to our RFP. The first one is 1515 West 47th Street LLC. That's Park Row Development and Churchill Stateside Group. The second proposal we received is called Back of the Yards Works, and that's a partnership of Condor Development and Back of the Yards Coffee Company. And then the third proposal we received is named United Yards, and that's New City Redevelopment Limited. It's a partnership of Celadon Partners and the Blackwood Group. And so the first proposal, 1515 West 47th Street. I'll go back real quick. This is just a rendering of what that development would look like from the street if you were walking along 47th Street. And that proposal is proposing ground floor retail, including nonprofit offices, restaurant space, and commercial hydroponics. They're proposing roughly 50 units of residential on the floors above, and also proposing around 2,800 square feet of outdoor gallery space and a rooftop deck. And their total project cost is just shy of $20 million. The second proposal that we received, Back of the Yards Works. Again, this is a rendering along 47th Street, looking at the property from the sidewalk. They are proposing on the first floor, a local coffee house, bakery, retail, and coffee production, as well as outdoor seating. On the second floor, they're proposing cultural and workforce development space and an outdoor terrace. And then on the third floor, they're proposing a brewery, tap room, beer garden, and some reception space. Their total project cost is $14.9 million. And then the third proposal is United Yards. And this is a rendering of what the building would look like that they are proposing at the corner of 47th and Justine on the RFP site. But their proposal actually encompasses a number of improvements and investments along 47th Street. And so kind of reading this from left to right, I'm starting at A, the portion in red, that is the RFP site. And they're proposing there 50 units of family housing, affordable multifamily development. They're proposing an outdoor terrace. And then on the ground floor, they're proposing commercial space and an opportunity hub. They also are looking to acquire the Rainbow Building, and they're proposing a full historic restoration of the exterior of the Rainbow Building, as well as adding 22 to 30 units of senior housing upstairs, and then also renovating the existing vacant storefronts on the ground floor, and also working with the existing tenant to upgrade their space as well. At the New City Supportive Living site, also known as the Goldblatt Building, they are proposing some exterior upgrades, as well as 60 to 70 parking spaces underground at that site. And then they are also proposing a new senior medical clinic in the ground floor of the building. They are proposing to vacate a portion of Marshfield Avenue to cul-de-sac it and provide public open space at that site. And then they are also proposing the site directly to the west to do 6 units of, again, affordable housing. And their total project cost is $51.5 million. And so those are the 3 proposals we received. And of course, over the next several months, or the next month or 2, we'll be working to engage the public around these and get your feedback and thoughts. And then also evaluating those proposals internally. And so we wanted to take a minute just to talk through the city's evaluation criteria. And there are really 4 components. There's 3 here that are numbered, but I think the community feedback is an important thing to highlight. But the first thing that the evaluation committee will be looking at against these 3 proposals is, do they build community wealth? And that means, are they leveraging community partnerships? Do they have a commitment to equity in their proposal? Are they committed to local hiring? Are they promoting small businesses? How are they engaging the community and building wealth in the community? The second evaluation criteria is, does the proposal provide an example or demonstrate professional competence? And that's in terms of, has the team demonstrated that they have the professional experience to complete a project like this? Are they committed to design excellence in their design? Have they responded to the community priorities that were articulated in the request for proposals and that we heard through the visioning workshop? And are they committed and demonstrated innovation and creativity in their proposal and in their design? The third evaluation criteria is economic feasibility. So what does the project, what does the budget look like? What kind of public assistance has been requested or required for the project? What do their financial qualifications look like? Does this seem like a project that financially could be achieved? And then the evaluation committee will also be taking into consideration all the community feedback that we receive here tonight at the public engagement session that we're planning for the middle of May, an online survey that we will also be launching in coordination with that public engagement event. All of that community feedback will also be considered in the evaluation of these proposals. And so the next steps, I've alluded to a lot of it, but right now, DPD has reviewed and summarized the 3 proposals that we've received. We, have previewed them here tonight, and I know Sonia also sent out kind of a summary sheet to everyone, I believe yesterday, that also summarizes these proposals. Mid-May, we're currently targeting Thursday, May 13th, and I do want to hear from, the folks on the call if that date and time works for everyone. We're thinking Thursday, May 13th at 6 p.m. We will be inviting developers to present their proposals at a public engagement event. We will then follow up with a community survey that everyone who joins that call will receive. So we can solicit feedback from the community, give the community a chance to hear directly from the developers what their proposals are, get any questions answered from those teams, but then also provide thoughts and ideas about those proposals. What works, what doesn't work, what do you like to see, what didn't you like? And we're going to take that input and incorporate it into the evaluation of these proposals. And so then in June, the evaluation committee will select a successful proposal based on that evaluation criteria that I presented on the previous slide, plus any community feedback that we've received. And that evaluation committee is made up of members from the mayor's office, the Chicago Department of Transportation, the Department of Housing, the Department of Assets Information Services, and then the Department of Planning and Development, Zoning, Financial Incentives, Sustainability, and Planning and Design. So a whole group of folks will be evaluating these against those different metrics. And so I know that was a lot of information. And again, I want us to have an opportunity to have a conversation and answer questions tonight, but I also don't want us to get too in the weeds because you'll have a chance to hear directly from these development teams at a later date. But yeah, I want to pause and just take any questions or any comments at this time.
So Nolan, we do have one question in the chat from Marcella. Her question is, but is community feedback really taken into account when there is not a quantitative number attached to the framework?
I think that's a great question. I mean, my understanding is that in addition to those, kind of hard evaluation criteria that were outlined in the RFP, the evaluation committee will be reviewing, the summary of the surveys that were conducted, a summary of the feedback that we receive at the public engagement session next month. And I would also stress that a lot of the evaluation criteria is based on what was outlined in the RFP as development criteria for the site. And a lot of those development criteria were developed at these visioning workshops with the community. So some of the community's feedback is already baked into the RFP in the first place. And then the meeting that we'll have next month, as well as the survey results, will be another opportunity to sort of course correct and understand, what works and what doesn't work in these proposals. I know we have Claudia Erasme on the phone, and I think she's been, I don't know if we have Jim with us. I want to kind of punt to somebody who's been through the first round of RFPs, maybe to answer a little more detail on the question that Marcella has.
Yeah, and this is Jim Harbin, Nolan, yes, and I think you answered it beautifully. We took a lot of time to make sure that we asked questions and had community participation before the RFPs were even drafted. So much of that language is embedded in the RFP, and the question becomes, and what's going to actually give the community another opportunity to chime in, is how well did they respond to what's in the RFP? How well did they respond to the information that the community put together? And yes, we're going to be listening. We're going to go through a process, as Nolan alluded, where we're going to literally do surveys, conduct surveys. We're going to be taking notes on the questions that are asked to the developers. We certainly want to digest exactly how they respond to those questions, and we will be using that information as we take it back internally to our evaluation committee before making a decision.
Thanks, Jim. And I want to keep you on the spot for just another minute, because we did receive another question from Araceli, and she asks, basically, will neighbors or residents have the opportunity to be a part of the evaluation committee? And I know there've been conversations about kind of a community component to that, but I want to let you answer that question.
Yeah, and the evaluation committee that is made up in part of mostly city departments is really taking on the role of making sure that the developers are responsible, that they are being responsive to the RP, that there's a financial capacity there to kind of get it done, to make sure that they are in compliance with any zoning issues. We're more looking at that, and we're listening and utilizing the feedback from the community based on how they responded to community wealth, how they responded to some of the things that the community baked into the RFP. So that input is certainly going to be taken to heart, but the city's role, if you will, is more in making sure, these are very complex financial deals. We want to make sure that the city is being responsible in terms of making sure people who do get selected, comply with the response with the RFP, but also has the wherewithal to hit, the many notes that they need to hit in order to get something like this completed.
Right, and then Claudia Alvidrez.
What I would say to complement that is that clearly the more voices we can incorporate into the feedback process, I think that would strengthen our understanding of how the community feels and what are the preferences from the community. And I think that what we would really like to discuss is how do we, and I think that there was a question in the chat about how do we reach out to the largest amount of community members so that we can really have that input in terms of your preferences as a part of the considerations as we evaluate the RFP.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So speaking of engagement, Claudia Alvidrez has a couple questions about engagement. The first one is, how are you reaching out to community people to be part of these meetings and surveys? Thank you for that question. I think, we continue to try and find ways to better engage. We work with both Alderman Lopez and Alderwoman Taylor on outreach and engagement. We will also be, we have the corridor manager with Back of the Yards Neighborhood Council who helps us to get the word out as well. And I do know between now and this larger engagement session that we have planned for next month, we will be circulating flyers. We will be going out door to door and putting flyers indoors in the blocks around this development site so that folks know that this is happening and that they have an opportunity to join the call and learn more about it and ask questions. And so, yeah, I think, we continue to try and find ways to better engage. I think we also look to everyone on this call tonight, the community, the neighborhood roundtable, to help us get the word out and let your neighbors know and let your friends know. And so, yeah, so thank you for that question. And then how many of the proposals are from people that live in the area? I don't know offhand if any of the folks on the proposals live in Back of the Yards, but I know everyone has roots in Back of the Yards or connections to Back of the Yards who have submitted responses. Then I know, Claudia, you asked another question, but I'm taking these in order. Angie, you had a question?
Yeah, my question actually does involve Alderwoman Taylor. I'm sorry no one from the office is on tonight, but I'm guessing they're caught up with the climate of the city right now. I know myself, my energy's down, and it's a tough night for all of us who work in inner cities with youth. Yeah. But in any case, the process that you're outlining is different than the 20th Ward follows. The 20th Ward schedules 2 community meetings because in our experience across the ward, we find that after the first meeting happens, there's a whole lot of neighbors who say, why didn't I know about it? And so the second meeting allows for the pickup of that second round of people. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm wondering about why that hasn't come up yet, because I know that Alderwoman Taylor, at least up till now, their signatures are important for any city funding that is sought. And she insists on percentages of people in the surrounding community who attend and actually vote. Mm-hmm. So unless we're going to see some struggle over who gets to decide where city money goes. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I will say, we continue to work with her office. We had a phone call with her. Sonia would have to remind me, last week or week before last, to talk about just this. How do we engage and how do we work within, the process that she has outlined in her ward? And so, I'll be honest, we haven't sort of figured out what that looks like yet. But I think we are committed to, working with her, her office and the process to make sure that we are engaging in the way that she prefers. And so if that means, I know she has town halls, we may want to kind of piggyback on one of her town halls, or find another way to engage. But yeah, we are working with her on that. And then Claudia asked, who is in the selection committee? And again, I don't know if we're kind of naming individuals, but on the slide here, there is a list of the different departments who are represented on the evaluation committee. So again, the mayor's office, the Department of Transportation, housing, different elements within the Department of Planning and Development, including financial incentives to look at the, the financials. And so those are the folks who are currently on the evaluation committee. Are there other comments or questions? We can always end 10 minutes early.
I think that maybe I'll say it in another way, which is if there are also other suggestions in terms of how do we, bring, again, more participation, and we're able to, communicate the excitement that we have to bring this development to happen in the community that we hope you are also excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, COVID has just presented a lot of challenges for traditional forms of engagement. And I know I've said it before on these calls, and I'll say it again. I think Sonia and I think all of us would much rather be having events in the community where we can actually get more people, in a room and talk than doing kind of virtual Zoom meetings every month. But, I think we are committed to engaging and finding new ways to do that. Angie says, please advertise your interpretation services. Are we doing better this time? I think we're committed to this as well. The engagement session that we have planned for next month will have simultaneous interpretation again. And we're also asking the developer teams to be ready with their materials that they're also bilingual. And so I think we're committed to upping our game on interpretation going forward as well. And I see, yeah, so we need to get the word out. We can definitely do that. Will the evaluation committee date be advertised in advance? Jim or Claudia?
I'm not sure. You mean that if there's like a meeting date or something like that?
I think that's what they're referring to. And I'm not sure that there is. I think each of the members kind of fills out their own evaluation.
There's actually a series of meetings because these take a lot of time actually to evaluate. And there is, because as it's outlined on the slide, there's people looking at it from different angles: transportation, finances, design, how it supports different services of the city, sustainability. There's many facets to these developments. And so there are multiple meetings where everyone comes together to compare from their perspective, which one is responding to the criteria and to the feedback that we have received from you. And so it's not a one-day selection. Everyone has to do it on their own time, and then there's some multiple moments where we come all together to share notes.
But I guess I will ask the question in a different way. Will we share the results of the evaluation committee? So that folks can see.
As in like the score, like how do we evaluate?
Mm-hmm.
I think that we share the results. I can't remember. Jem, do you remember?
Yeah, it's not, I mean, there's a lot of details, as you alluded
Okay.
to, Claudia, in terms of, part of that evaluation is even taking place right now. So there's a number of, notes, there's a number of subsequent meetings to make sure there's clarity in terms of what the developers are proposing. I don't think it's a rubric that in the traditional sense, it's more of, again, following the line of the RFP in terms of what was designed and developed through this process, and making sure the developer was hitting that, but at the same time, are they in compliance with zoning? Are they having a financial responsible response? Are they taking into account transportation and parking, that type of things? And it's more checking those boxes and making sure nothing is out of compliance.
Thank you. Are there other comments or questions?
Yeah. That is certainly, I mean, we can, Angie's asking, we would like to know some points as to why the selected project was selected and what were some of the reasons the others weren't. Your evaluation committee doesn't live here. We don't know if they get it. Remember, transparency. Again, there is a fair amount of technical review that happens with these proposals in terms of then being able to demonstrate that they have financial solvency and the experience to do these type of projects, and that the capital stack is correct, or something that we believe is compliant. There is also the technical analysis that has to do with zoning and transportation and all of that. So I would definitely welcome in feedback in terms of like what aspects of the evaluation are most important to you that we can bring you more information on. The residents don't have a say on what projects goes up. Well, I think that, well, it might not feel like you are making a direct selection. I would reiterate that we are definitely listening, and this is why we're developing these mechanisms to get your feedback, so that we are making sure that the projects that we're selecting do match the aspirations of the community. So again, I think that this is where we are very, very interested in having as wide a participation as possible.
That's right. Yeah, and so, we will be looking to get as many folks to that May engagement event as possible, so that they can see and hear firsthand from the development teams what their proposals are, and they can ask them kind of themselves, any questions that they have, and provide any feedback on those proposals. And then we will also have a survey where folks, again, can sort of provide their thoughts and reactions to the different proposals. And then I would also mention that all of that will be, just like these meetings are recorded and published online, that will be recorded and published online as well. So even, folks who are not able to make it the night of the event will still have an opportunity to kind of watch the meeting, hear what was asked, hear what people said, and also have an opportunity again to provide their feedback. So.
Nolan, do you? Or...
I mean, I think I'll defer to you on the second comment from Marcella, but I think, you know, Claudia, I would mention again that, you know, while it has been challenging to get, you know, lots and lots of people to the table, we did have, you know, several engagement events last fall, 2 visioning workshops, 4 neighborhood roundtables, an additional workshop in January, to hear from people, you know, what they want to see on the site, what's important, what isn't, and make sure that those ideas and those needs and that vision was incorporated into the RFP that went out, which is, you know, kind of sets the criteria that any of these proposals will need to achieve in order to be considered responsive. And so, you know, a lot of that feedback and input from the community on what's important is already incorporated into that RFP.
Right. I mean, I think that Marcela wrote in here that as a community member, it is difficult to understand why we have been fed this dialogue, that we are part of the process from the beginning to end. However, we are not quantitatively involved in the selection process. I have to acknowledge that it might not feel satisfying to you, the response, but the idea is that we are engaged in this conversation because we want to hear your opinion and we want to hear what you, what the community has to say about the potential for these sites. And that is how it gets translated into us being able to do, you know, our responsibility of making a decision that is based on having that understanding and also based on our technical expertise in the roles that we do in the city. So we have to and again, part of what we are bringing back and reflecting back in these meetings is to check that we are listening correctly and that what we're listening is exactly what you meant and how that plays out in terms of the decisions that we're making.
I will respond to Maria's question about parking being brought up as an issue. You know, all 3 proposals do have parking as a component in their proposals. And I also, you know, I think it's important to, when we have the conversation with CDOT, hopefully next month, you know, some of the work that they're planning on doing, I would hope would start to address some of those parking issues as well. So I think there's, you know, there's a number of different ways that we can kind of address that as an issue. And so I think, you know, I want to be, I know we're at time now, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time, especially since we're, you know, kind of late into the evening at this point. But, you know, I think we hear and recognize the comments that have been coming up in the chat. And I think, you know, as always, you know, we always have more work to do. And so, you know, I appreciate everyone's thoughts and their input. And, you know, I appreciate, you know, engagement being a concern, and it is for us too. And so I think, yeah, I just want to thank you for those, for your thoughts and your comments. And I think we will continue to work with all of you on this call, with both aldermen, with the Back of the Yards Neighborhood Council, again, to just, try to find ways to get the word out, to get people to these meetings, and make sure that folks have information so they know what's going on. So I want to thank everyone for that. I don't know, again, we are at time. So, if there's any other kind of last, questions or thoughts, I would welcome them. But certainly, I think next steps, we will follow up with some more information on this engagement event. I did want to ask if May 13th, we're looking at May 13th, around the same time, probably 6 to 7:30 or 6 to 8, to give folks enough time to, hear about the proposals, ask any questions they might have, provide feedback. Does that sound okay for everyone? I'm hoping that's enough, kind of lead time. We're also working with both aldermen to make sure that that works for their schedules, and then gives us some time to get the word out to everyone else. And then I would also mention, Sonia Eldridge on my team. She's great. She's very responsive. She kind of keeps track of all of our stakeholder engagement down here. And so, please do reach out to her if there are folks that we should be inviting to the table. If you have ideas on better ways to engage, let us know, reach out to her. And certainly let your neighbors know, let your friends who live in the neighborhood or work in the neighborhood know that we have these roundtables, that we're going to have this event next month. We'll get more information out to everyone on the call tonight. So you have a date and a time and some of the details that you can share with your networks. But we'll also continue to work to get the word out and make sure that, we can get as many voices as possible to this next engagement event.
Absolutely. Please feel free to reach out to me directly with any community folk that I should be inviting to the meeting. Just send along names and emails. Also, we encourage you all to, I see your message there, Claudia. I'll add you to the list, definitely. We encourage you all to share the flyer with your neighbors. It'll be coming out in the next, I think less than, in a few days, actually. Probably early next week, we'll have it distributed. Please feel free to send your questions along as well. And we thank you for your input, and we'll be in touch here soon.
And so, Sonia, I hate to put you on the spot, but do you know your office line? Can we share?
Sure. Yep. Hang on one second. You know what? I don't know it by heart because I don't use it.
We've all been working from home for a year. So, Sonia literally started 3 days before we started working from home. So,
yep. So my office line is 312-742-9185. And I'll put that in the chat as well right now.
Thank you. So I'll give her a minute to do that before I cut us all loose for the night.
There we are. And again, thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us tonight. And again, we'll get the word out. We'll let you guys know kind of the next steps in the process. Claudia asked about Facebook. We have been talking to both aldermen about posting information on their social media. And so I think you will see that happening. And I know the Department of Planning and Development, we have a new engagement person who's also putting together a strategy for how we can get the word out. So yeah, so I think, we're looking at a lot of different ways to get the word out to folks.
But no, this particular presentation, this event today is recorded and it will be posted in our website as well.
That's correct.
And I'll circulate that link as well in a follow-up meeting, follow-up email after this meeting.
Yeah, thank you. That's right. Thank you for reminding me. All right. So
sorry, is the translated portion will also be available recorded, or is it just the English version?
I actually don't know the answer to that.
So
we will find out though.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is Jim Harvey. We're going to circle back on that. We just want to make sure we're sure, because you're right. That's something, and it's a great question. Yeah, someone will circle back tomorrow on that.
I'm sure the technology is recording it. We just don't know how to get it.
Right. We may end up with 2 meetings, right, that we'll have to post, and that's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so with that, we're a little bit over. I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. I think some really exciting stuff that's happening in Back of the Yards, and we're excited to continue to engage with you and the rest of the community as we move forward. So thank you all. I'm sure you'll be hearing from me or Sonia in the next day or two with some more information.
Thanks,
All right.
everyone. Take care.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.